Hi, I'm Corey. Welcome to Creating with Scraps. This video is going to show how I made the cover for the Scrapbuster idea book. And the inside pages will be done probably Tuesday. School's out tomorrow, Monday. And so probably Tuesday I'll share the inside. But today I'm going to show you specifically how to make the cover. I also had a lot of questions. At the end of the cover, I'm going to show you how I made the paper flowers that a couple asked about, and then I'll answer some random questions that I had on the video. So to start, cover. This cover is 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 because the inside pages are 6 by 6. They're the Tim Holtz paper, and it doesn't matter which line, if it's memoranda or wallflower or French industrial. I think actually there might be a bit of French industrial in here, though I think most of this is the memoranda. But the pages are 6 by 6, and I wanted the cover just a smidge bigger all the way around. So the cover is 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. And the cover is basically done in 2 steps or stages. And the first step or stage, and here's one that I have prepped ready to show you, and then one we'll do together. These are pieces of cardstock. They're the heavier weight cardstock, 110 pound. I believe I bought it at Walmart. It was not spendy at all, but it's their heavier cardstock. And then what I did is I took a bunch of random scraps. I just leftover bits, I sorted them out, and these are all cardstock, so they're a little bit heavier, but you don't have to use cardstock. You could use other things, but in this case, I used cardstock. So I had random leftover bits that were, at least an inch or so, 3/4 of an inch wide, and, whatever length. And then I cut all of these bits up into rectangles and squares and just random shapes. You can do the same exact thing with torn edges if you like that look, but for this, I wanted the tidiness of straight lines. So if you choose to tear it, in fact, one of the pages in here, the collage page has, here it is. See, this one has torn bits too, so you can do the same idea for this. But like I said, for the cover, I wanted it to be a little bit more streamlined and straight. All right, so I took 2 pieces of 8 1/2 by 11 paper and cut them to 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. And this is the one I have prepped for you. There should be a second piece here somewhere. Where did I put it? I put it down. Oh, here it is. It's underneath the book. Okay, so I've got a front and a back cover, and it doesn't really matter which one's which. So all that random bits, I cut them into rectangle shapes. And then I just started laying them down, and I'll show you in a minute what I mean. But I started laying them down, the larger pieces first, and then I filled in with some of the smaller pieces, making sure I overlapped. But before I did that, I inked the edges because I liked inked edges. It's not required. You certainly don't have to do it. So just to talk you through my step before I actually do it, to help maybe get your mind in there, that right spot. Or maybe that's not the right spot, but the spot to create these. 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. And then your random bits. And then I use this glue stick, but other people have different favorites. I'm not a huge glue stick fan, but I have found the Gorilla glue sticks work the best for what I need. They're long lasting and they hold really well. In fact, I used them on these inside cover pieces, and I'm really pleased with the way they've held. So that's what I use. I get them on Amazon. You can get them other places as well, but I found it's just easiest to get it on Amazon. But if you like Yoo-Hoo or, I don't remember, Elmer's, high quality, whatever, but I use glue stick for that. All right. And then, so these are the outside of the cover, right? The front and the back, which I don't know which order it'll be in, but these are the outside covers. And then I made the inside covers. And the way I did this is I used a composition book, simply because the cover of a composition book, simply because I have a whole bunch. At the end of the year, a lot of times students will leave their partially used composition books in class, and I hate to waste them. So I double check with them. Are you sure you don't want to take it home? No, I don't want it. I'm done. Okay. Then I'll take out the pages, which is really easy to do. You just cut out because it's sewn at the spine, and I'll recycle the ones that the kids actually wrote on after I've made sure they don't want it. And then the others I'll stick in a coffee bath and use it for paper in my journals. But I save the covers as well. And in fact, here's a cover that we're going to be using because I like to sew on mine, and these are a great thickness for sewing. And I don't change my needle as a general rule. I believe I use 11 or 12. Maybe it's a 14, but I believe it's 11. It's usually what I grab. And it goes through this easily. I mean, I have to be careful, but it goes through it. So the composition books are what I use. You can also use cereal box. You can use cracker box. I don't use corrugated board for this simply because I want a smoother, thinner profile, but I suppose you could. Basically just some kind of a chipboard. You can certainly go out and buy chipboard, but I don't use the thicker chipboard for this because I sew on it. If you're not going to sew, then maybe a thicker chipboard will work well for you. So I've got heavy cardstock on the back, cardstock on the front. So they're sturdy, but they're flexible. And then these are just a little more inflexible. And this is just composition book. And my rationale was it keeps the kids' books mostly intact for a school year. So, and I'm not nearly as hard on them generally as the kids are. So I figure it's got to be fairly sturdy. So that's what I use. And I did the same thing. I cut this into 2 pieces at 6 1/4 square. And then 1 piece at 6 1/4, but this one's 2 1/2, and I think the one we're going to cover today is 2 1/4. And I told you I was going to make a 2-inch spine, but when I was checking this book and I was thinking of the spine, I wrapped this around. I don't know if you can see that, and I wanted it to be about. So I made this one 2 1/2, the other 2 1/4, because I'll have one prepped and one show you. And I've got one of these books will probably go in my shop the first week of July. The end of next week, I'll be gone in Texas with my older daughter, Amy, looking at post-grad programs. But I'll open up my Etsy shop because I've got lots of ink boxes and some other things to put in there. So I'll open that up again. It's not that it's closed. There's just nothing in it right now. But anyway, I'll put things in it when I'm home, and I can actually ship them as soon as I get a request. All that to say, I'll have one prepped that'll show you what each piece is, and then we'll make one together so that you can kind of see each stage. And I intend to put a little bit, I've already got it in mind what I'm going to be putting in them, and one will be a little thicker and one will be a little thinner. Now, if you're a person who likes really flat books, obviously I am not. If you use more copy paper or thinner paper, or you print digitals on copy paper rather than, a combination of cardstock and digitals, every little bit that we use, for example, when I print digitals, I generally print them on a thinner weight cardstock, not the super heavy duty cardstock, but a thinner weight cardstock, because I like it. But a lot of people print these on copy paper, and so they're much thinner. So if you use mostly copy paper, you won't need a spine as thick as mine. If you don't put a lot of chunky embellishments or pieces or heavier lace or things like that in yours, you won't need a spine as thick as mine. I generally like thick books. That's what I'm used to, and that's what I do. So mine need a wider spine. So this 2 1/2 or 2 1/4 inch guideline is really dependent upon how you create and what you like. I like thick, so I made my spine a little wider. If yours is going to, because remember, it's only 16 pages. So if yours isn't going to be as chunky as mine, you might want to cut it down to, I wouldn't make it any smaller than 2 inch. And here's my reasoning. When I sew, this is separate for a reason, and this is the center, or the center of the spine. I draw lines because I'm going to use my sewing machine and sew it in. Now, you can do the same thing with a standard 5-hole pamphlet stitch or something, and I'll show you that option. But I want to sew it, and I want them at 8-inch intervals. So I had a point at the 1 inch. Oh, we have 16 pages, and if you go less than 1/8 of an inch, it's really hard to see if you do 16th inch. Really tough. So I do 1/8 inch intervals with 16 pages. So if it's less than 2 inches, your spine won't be wide enough. However, you can put 2 or more pages in each signature. So mine is going to be 1 page per signature, essentially. But you could put 2 pages per signature. That'll be very easy to do. So if you want a thinner book, again, you can make a thinner spine, but if you're doing it exactly like I'm doing it, you probably want about 2 1/4 inches to 2.5 inches. So I know I kind of went around in circles there, but I don't want to tell you have to do something simply because your needs might be very different than mine, and how you create might be very different than I do. So that's my rationale. That's why I want mine at least 2 1/4 inches, because I want to draw the lines on there and sew them in straight. Whether it's with the pamphlet stitch or the sewing machine, I want my pages that far apart. All right. So, and then these are the pages, the 16 pages. I did 12 of the Tim Holtz papers, and then a couple Braille page, and then this was a time card, I believe, and then I had one piece of cardstock. So I've got 16 pages that are going to go into my journal, and that held all of the Scrapbuster ideas. If you have more Scrapbuster ideas, make it 20 pages. If you want to combine more items on each page, you can make it 12 pages. But my guideline is 16, so that's what the measurements I'm going with. All right, and this is the way I did this. And I'll put this to the side so I don't forget. All right, I've got my composition book, right? It's even together, or intact still. I've got my cover pieces here. I've already got those cut and prepped. After I cut the pieces in a rectangle, I just put them inside this bag so that I could show you and use it. I've done one of the cover pieces, but I haven't sewn it because the sewing is optional. And I'll show you that before I forget. All right, so here it is glued down on the cover. And here it is sewn. What I did is I just used the guide on my machine and I did straight stitching, just straight up and down. And then when I was all the way done, I capped it at the top and the bottom. But if you don't want to sew, if you don't have a sewing machine, if you prefer not to have that look, you can still get a cover and still do it like this without sewing it. So I'm going to show you how to do it without sewing it, but know that what I did is once I made the cover, made this piece, I let this dry, made sure my glue is dry so it doesn't gum up my machine, and then I went in and I did the stitches later. So it won't affect what we do now, whether or not you choose to sew on it. All right, so I had two pieces at 6 1/4, right? And we'll do that part first, just to make life simple. And then we'll do the inside of the cover next. And then here are the pages, but that comes Tuesday. So I'm going to put these away so I don't do something foolish and grab it and cut it up or something. Put that away, put this away, and I'll put these pieces. All right. Oh, no, I need this. All right. We are going to turn this into this. And the way I do it is I grab just one of my glue pages, what have you. Actually, that one's been glued over, so it's smaller. Grab a glue page. And I've got my piece of paper. And then these have all been pre-inked simply because I wanted to save time. And these are all rectangle square pieces of cardstock. This is that cool green paper. I found some and I've ordered it, and hopefully it'll be the same stuff. But this is craft cardstock. So I cut a variety of pieces, and then any that I have left over when I'm done with this, because I'll certainly have some. I can use these for button spots. I can use these for collage pages. I can use them for clusters. I can use this and make a snippet roll. So it wasn't a waste of time for me to ink around all these edges, because what I don't use here, I will use somewhere else. And I have a variety so that I can, balance the colors essentially. So like you see here, I chose different sizes of pieces and I chose different locations, and I wanted to be able to blend the colors so it wasn't, heavy light, heavy dark, what have you. It's kind of a mix. And shoot, maybe I'll do it like this so that you can see. So here is my 6 1/4 inch square, and I will just grab some of these pieces and lay them down. I like to change the direction of the font. I'm not a huge fan of it upside down. I don't know why, but I just don't love that. So I generally don't do it. So I'll just start laying them down to see where I want them to go. I mean, and then this is just a guideline. I don't fill it in completely. I just generally do the big pieces, maybe the corners, some obvious spots. Now, see, I've already got this here, so I don't necessarily want to use that. I want the color balance of this, so maybe I'll use this piece somewhere. But I need something. Oh, here you go. That size-wise is good. I'll put maybe that down in this corner, and then maybe a larger piece up here. Those are grid and grid, so that's kind of close to each other, though I really like the color. Maybe I'll put that on top of something. I have a lot of grid in here. Let's see. You know what? That's lighter and that's darker. Maybe I'll do something like that. Okay, so this is really loosely laid out, right? And I know it's going to fit, and I know there's going to be places I need to overlap. So So I'll just move these off to the side and put a good layer of glue stick on. And it doesn't have to be perfect, remember, because I'm going to sew this. If you're not sewing it, maybe you want to go a little heavier on your glue stick. One of the reasons I use this particular glue stick is it tends to stay wet a little bit longer, and it doesn't, I don't know, peel off as much as some of the others do. All right, and then I'm going to just lay these pieces down. Again, I am going to sew mine, so it's not essential that I make it perfect. It doesn't have to all match and be all lined up because I can trim it at the end when I'm done. Well, that fit really well, but it's still, see, I've got a little bit of a gap there. That's all right. You know what? I can come in with a thin piece and fill that gap. Now, sometimes I'll overlap the edge if I don't like where it is, and then I'll come in and cut it off at the end. But I don't always do that. Sometimes I'll line it up just to make my life easier and just line it up as I'm going. Now you see here, there's a gap there too. So again, I'll come in with a thinner strip, or I'll make a thinner strip if I don't have one, and I'll fill that gap. I think I wanted this here, and then that overlaps. So let's see, do I want that to line up? You know, see, here we go. I'm going to make it hang off the edge because I really don't want that one to be too bulky, because I'll lay a piece on top probably. All right. And you can see the lines don't match. They're not perfectly symmetrical. They don't always touch. But there you go. So right there is my first layer. And now I want to come in and address these gaps that I've got. And I'll do that with these other pieces. I really liked this color, but maybe not right there. And that one's not long enough. But maybe I'll put that there because I like that color. So that's a possibility. But the big thing is I want to first fill these gaps. And maybe, oh, this is a good one. All right, so I like that. And I like the little bit of red up at the top, but they're the same exact length, and these two are the same color. So that's a no. Oh, but I could put it over. No, I know, because of balance. These are the same color and pattern, but in a different scale. So I am going to put this one over here to fill that gap because I like the way they balance each other. Now on this layer, I'm using glue, and I'm using the reptile glue. And the reason I use reptile glue for this is it stays wet longer and it gives me a little bit more wiggle room. It's thinner than art glitter glue, but not too thin. And I have more ability to move things around. Art glitter glue gives you very limited amounts of time for that. And because somebody's going to ask, this is a knitting needle cap. And I know a lot of people use them and they get them at Hobby Lobby. These just happen to come from Daiso, which is basically a Japanese dollar store. And that's Daiso, D-A-I-S-O. And it's in Washington, but I don't know what other cities and states it's in. And I found that I don't have to use that funky little plastic cap that came on here. I just cut that off. In fact, it came on this and it made me a crazy person. And I don't have to put the needle in. Like, I've left this overnight several times and it holds it so that that area doesn't dry out. It's easy to get on and off. So, side note. But for this step, I use wet glue because it's going to be stronger. I don't go up to the edges because it'll overlap. But if it does overlap, it's not that big of a deal because a rubber cement square and I can pick it up. All right, I want to address this gap. So I'll line that up there and I want there. All right, so I've got that piece. And you can see I've got some overlap and I'll have to come in and fix that. I'm flipping this over simply because some of the glue is still tacky and I don't want it to do it that way. Let's see. But I've got a little bit of a gap here, so I need to think of something. No, I don't really care for that color. Oh, that's really pretty. I like that a lot. So I'm probably going to put that there because I like it. And I need something long over here. Oh, I like this. See, I liked the color pattern, so I'll be able to use that. And I could just match it up, but I want a little bit off-centered, so I'll probably lay it like that. And then I just need one more small bit for here. Now, I could put this here, but I haven't used any other, like on this one, I have solid here, and I only used it once. And most of that will probably be covered up. So I don't really want a solid pattern, though maybe some green would be good. Now, see, it doesn't balance with everything else. So on this one, I'm not going to do that. That's kind of a big piece and it's too dark. That's too close in color. Maybe something with more contrast. No, I don't love that either. Oh, well, that's kind of cool. It's a different... Okay, I kind of like that. Maybe not, though, because it's a red line and red line here. So, no, don't love that either. And let's see. I will find something that I'm pleased with. It might take me a bit, but I'll... Sorry about the dogs. I'm sure something tragic is happening. All right, I do like that. And I do... maybe like this. No, but then I don't like the way there's that gap here. So maybe I need to move things around a little bit. And something like that. Sorry, guys. The monsters are talking. You know, maybe I just need to make this piece a little smaller. I just don't love it. I do like this piece here. Maybe I need to move this over here, or just right there, and then something little right here. And I don't have any pink on there, even though that's really pretty. I don't have any pink on here, so that would be... Oh, that might be good. Yeah, I like that. All right, so that's what I'm going to do, and then I'll finish gluing these bits down. And you just play with it until it's aesthetically pleasing to you. Whatever, you know, whatever makes your eye happy. Glue that. Glue this. I think that's where I had it. I just don't want that white background to show. Glue that there. I still really like this color, but that leaves too little of a piece right here. And I don't like the way that's stair-stepped there. So I'll just leave it off. I'll use it for something else. And glue this piece down. Let's see, where did I have that? Did I have it? I did have it going down a little bit. Is that upside down? No. Okay, it's good. All right. And that is the cover. Once the glue is dry, I will trim it down. I'll use my paper trimmer and trim this down to 6 1/4 flush. And then I'll take my ink dauber and ink, well, you can see here, I'll ink up the edges all the way around. And that is how I made the cover. Then, once the glue is completely dry and I've trimmed it, I will take it over to my, you can leave it just like this, but I'll take it over to my sewing machine and use the guides on my machine to make my stitches. All right, there's the outside cover. And again, I don't want to mix my pages up, so do that. I'll do this. All right, now the inside cover. Put these pieces away. So, like I said, it's not, for me, a waste of time because I will use these for other things. Yeah, so it's a good time saver for me. All right, so here's the pages. Here's the cover pieces. Here are the outside cover pieces. Now the inside cover. All right, I have got 2 pieces of 8 by 8 paper. 8-ish by 8-ish. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then this one's, or maybe these are 8.5 by 8. I don't know, whatever they are. I know they're black and it's hard to see, but I wanted black on the inside here because I liked the way the black and the brown worked together. It made some of those pieces stand out. And I haven't put anything in here, though I have an idea for what I'm going to put there. But I chose black. You can do the same thing with fabric if you would rather use fabric. You can put Tyvek on this between your layers if you intend to. For example, on the spine where I sew it, I could put Tyvek, and I may. I have Tyvek envelopes that I've gotten, and I cut them into strips and I glue them on just because Tyvek is really strong. And so that is an entirely real possibility that I might put Tyvek in there. All right, but for the sake of today, and if you do choose to use Tyvek, it's basically the same thing. You just put a layer of Tyvek down on top of it. You just have one more layer between your cardstock, or I'm sorry, between your board, your chipboard, your thin chipboard pieces, and your paper. And again, it's just for strength. So if you're wanting additional strength, you can put a layer of Tyvek between the two. So I've got these 2 pieces of paper that are like, I don't know, 8.5 by 8.5 or 8 by 8. And then a section that is about 8 by 8 by about 4.5 or so. And then I've got my composition book. And I don't want mine to have rounded corners. So my first cut or my first trim is going to be to make sure that those rounded corners are gone. All right, so I'll take that off. And then I wanted these 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. And on my trimmer, you can use an X-Acto knife if you prefer. You can use this trimmer. I have several trimmers. This one is just small and handy for what I'm doing here. But I make sure it's straight all the way down because it's easy to not push it up to the edge. And if you don't, it'll be a little crooked. And a little crooked with one cut's no big deal. But when you're putting a whole book together, a little crooked can really add up. So 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. And again, I'm making sure I push it up. All right. And then I know that this is 6 1/4, so I'll use this bit and I'll do 2 1/2. Again, 2 1/4, 2 1/2, whichever you choose. So then I've got my center spine. I've got my inside cover, one piece. And now I'm going to do the same thing with this one. The other side. I'm going to trim off the rounded edge simply because I don't want the rounded edge on this. And I will cut this to 6 1/4. And you can see here where the paper was sewn in, the signature was sewn into the composition book. And this is just bookbinding tape, and you can purchase, I use it quite frequently on many things, but you can purchase bookbinding tape on Amazon or in any other bookbinding supply stores. I don't use bookbinding tape for this one because I am going to sew my signature in with the sewing machine. I could use bookbinding tape, and I probably would if I was just going to use a pamphlet stitch to sew it in. So that's something to keep in mind. 1-inch bookbinding tape will serve you well, and it does come in black. But that's what this is, bookbinding tape. All right, 6 1/4, 6 1/4. Okay, now I've got my 3 pieces for the inside cover and the spine. The other is already trimmed. I'll put this under here. All right, I don't need my glue bit quite yet because my glue page because I'm just going to lay these down. And I'll start covering the pieces. Now, I use glue stick for this. And I know some people use a wet glue. And if I were using fabric for this, I would probably use Heat and Bond. And that comes in rolls, and you can buy it at Walmart. You can buy it at Amazon. You can buy it at Joann. Michael's might even carry it now that they have fabric. You can buy Heat and Bond all over. And it works really well with an iron. When I'm using fabric, I prefer Heat and Bond. So I get my fabric, let's say this is fabric rather than paper, and then I put the Heat and Bond right on top, cut to approximately, 1/4 inch smaller all the way around, and then I iron the Heat and Bond on. And the reason I do that is I don't have puckering gaps in my cover. It's the inside cover. It's nice and smooth. Now, you can just put the cover down and use Fabri-Tac, but I find that can be lumpy. If you take the time to use your spatula and run it through, by the time I've got it all run through, it's dry. Parts of it are dry, so it doesn't adhere evenly every place. So my preference is, if this were fabric, Heat and Bond, and then this, and then I just iron the 2 pieces together. And it works really well to hold it tight. Because I'm not using, and you can actually use Heat and Bond with paper if you choose to. It will hold paper as well, but this Gorilla Glue stick works equally well, so I'm going to use that, and I don't have to pull out the iron. All right. I generally, most of these have a glossier side, and the others have a flat side. I like to use this flat side to glue to my cover. So when I'm putting this down, because remember, this is going to be the inside cover, I'm going to put my glue stick on this. And again, same thing, I just do a hefty layer of glue stick. And again, any of the glue sticks will work. I just like this one because I don't have as much of the peel. You know how sometimes you get these big old gloppy peels? You still get them with this, but I don't get them as much. And I haven't had any lift with this glue stick. So that's why I use it. And you don't have to measure perfectly because we're rolling it or wrapping it around. So there you go. I mean, it's not going to be equidistant on all sides. It's just about in the middle. And then I use my ice scraper, but you can use a credit card or a bone folder or a ruler. This is just really handy because I know how strong it is and I know how much give I've got. And I check because sometimes when you push down like this, glue will seep out the edges. Even glue stick will. So I check to make sure that I'm not just carrying glue all over the place. All right, so glue stick down, and I'll turn it over, make sure there's no glue on there. And if there is, I can use a rubber cement square to pick up the glue because it'll do that. And again, most of this is going to be covered, so even if I get a little glue on here, it's not going to show so much. But anyway, it's a nice, and I don't know if you can see it there, but I don't have any bubbles, and it's a nice smooth surface. So that's why I do it that way. All right, my next step. Now, this is not a required tool. I just really like it. And I've had it for, well, I think I got it right when they first came out. And it is to miter corners. And it's from colorwayarts.com. And I will put the website on there, and I believe they're still in business, and they might even have a more upgraded version because this is many, many years old. I don't even know how many, but a lot old. And you simply, as you're mitering corners, you simply put your inside flush with this, and then you use your X-Acto knife to cut it off. You know what I should do first, and I usually do? I'll cut this to about 3/4 of an inch. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I don't want too much paper on the inside just for the extra bulk. So I'll cut it all the way around to about 3/4 of an inch. And I'm just using my guide on my trimmer. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, so I don't have to make sure it's lined up exactly. But I'm going to make it about 3/4 of an inch all the way around. And again, I have to make sure I push it up to the top edge so that my cuts are straight, or I'll be sorry later on. This works well with an X-Acto knife too. This is just quick and easy. And you can get these on sale, I don't know, for under $20. I'm not sure the exact cost, but I've gone through many over the years. Because what happens with this particular one, and it's why the one that's not going like, what happens is this piece right here, it eventually pulls apart and gives after you've used it too many times. Blades can be replaced frequently. Oh, and that's a tip I have. When your blade gets dull, you just pop them in and out. But when it gets dull, I mark it with a B for, no, try again, Corey, a D for dull, and I save it because sometimes on particular projects, I want the ratty edge to my page, and when you work with a dull blade, it gives you a ratty edge. So I'll save those blades, and when I want that raggedy bit, you know, I want it rough like that, rather than using the tool that makes it do it, I just cut it with my old blade. So there's a tip. Okay. So these are all cut down to about 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to use my miter tool. I'm going to hope that I'm in frame. And an X-Acto knife. I like this one simply because it's sturdy, and I got it on clearance, and I like clearance. And I'm going to miter the corners all the way around. Now, this company, I believe, or at least they used to have a video showing you how to use this, but I found it pretty straightforward and pretty self-explanatory. And you can buy just the mitering tool. There's kits, there's sets, there's all kinds of things, I believe. At least there used to be. But you can just buy the tool for, I don't know, 10-ish bucks or something. And it's metal, it's heavy duty. I want to say it's probably about 1/4 of an inch would be my guess. Maybe it's an 1/8 inch thick metal. And I've had it for a really long time, so it works well. All right. Next, bone folder. So I've got my chipboard here, and I am going to, on two sides, I'm going to run my bone folder down my paper on opposite sides, either the right and left or top and bottom, and it doesn't matter at all which you start with. But I do want to put a crease in there on opposite sides, so parallel sides. Whoops. Maybe I should put it on my scoreboard. You can use bigger scoreboards. Again, I just did this for the sake of, not scoreboard, cutting board. I just did this for the sake of ease in the video. And then I'm going to fold it over and press it down with no glue on it. And then the opposite again, parallel sides, fold it over, press it down. Now this is key to getting a nice tight corner. Let me grab this one. To get a nice tight corner, you know, where you've got a really nice square all the way around. This is the piece that I have found to be helpful. I've got these two scored, and then I'll take my bone folder, and right where I've overlapped it, right here, move in just a little bit, right here, I take my bone folder and I crease that down. And the same thing on the opposite side. I take my bone folder and I crease it down. On the other side as well. Bone folder, crease it down. Bone folder, crease it down. That makes a difference in the end product, I promise. Now I try really hard to remember not to use glue on this because then I'll get that all gummy and gluey too. Here I'll use the wet glue, reptile glue or art glitter glue or whatever. I'm going to put, where this overlaps, I am going to put a little dot of glue, maybe. There we go. And then a little dot of glue. Then I will, don't go right up to the edge because that'll cause it to seep out. And again, this is wetter than art glitter glue, so it's going to have a little bit more seep. But you don't need a ton. That's about all I use. And then I fold it over and I start in the middle and I press down and out. Press down and out. And again, this isn't going to show, so I've got a little bit of glue on there. I can either wipe it off with my rubber cement square, or I can just leave it because it's not going to show. I'm using the crease on my, this was a credit card or a Starbucks card or something, using that crease to push in. That is key to making a tight corner. Now you can see here, I have scored it so hard that I tore the paper a little bit, but that's okay because I can use a sander and come in later and push it down and you won't even see it. All right, opposite side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a little bit of glue in that corner and a little bit of glue in this corner. And yes, those are probably what seeped out, but I really want those down and tight. Glue around. All right. And push into that corner because I want that in and snug. And then I'll push down here and the same thing with this corner, in and snug. And like I said, I'm just making sure I've got the glue off of that. And then 2 of my corners are done. I'm going to do the same thing with the next 2 sides. I flip it around. I put my bone folder somewhere. There we go. I'm going to crease this down, making sure, giving special attention to that corner. And a lot of times I forget to lift it up. So if there's glue left on my glue mat, I might have glue on here. That's just the nature of what we do. So I'm going to push these corners in tight on that side. And I'm going to glue this. Now you can see those corners have already been pushed in. They've been pushed in and they're tight. So I'm going to glue this around too. Well, there must be a dog outside. Poor Maggie. She is very territorial and she does not like it when other dogs come near her house. She's got to protect us. And lay this down. Did I score it? I don't think I did because it's not folding nicely. So I want to go make sure I score it. That is an important step because it makes your fold tight and it makes your fit close. So I've scored that. And I am not starting over because the dog's barking. Sorry, guys. Maggie is named for Magnolia Market. My sister and I were there several years ago, and we found her wandering around at the park near Magnolia Market, and she had no tags, no nothing. And we went to the local pound, and they were a kill shelter in that area at that time. I don't know what they're like now. So she came home with us. And she is a Mastiff Akita mix, so she's very protective. Great dog, though. All right, tight corners, and you can see, I'm hoping up there that you can see these are nice tight corners. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this side. Glue. Oh, see, I forgot again. Let's score this. And it really does make a difference. It folds easier, and it's easier to make it nice and tight. All right. Bring this around and fold it down. And you can see it stands up a bit here, and that's one of the reasons that I really like using this ice scraper. or a credit card or what have you. I mean, they all work the same way. This one's nice and sturdy. All right, again, this is not going to show. You are not going to see this at all. This is the outside. Where is it? This piece is going to go over here, see? So it's not going to show at all. But your corners will. This is your inside edge. And I'll show you what I mean by this. So if you've got it's a tiny tear and you don't want it to be that way, I'll get an emery board and I'll smooth the edge and the little bit of flared paper. This isn't the highest quality cardstock, so I'm not surprised that it does that. But there you go. So I've got my inside front, inside, where did the other one go? I put it, inside front, inside back, okay. Outside front, outside back, not all the way done because I haven't trimmed it down or inked it. And then I need to do the same exact thing with the center spine with one notable difference. All right, let me glue this. This is going to be a long video, so I apologize. You know what? Maybe I'll stop and I'll do a part 2 simply because it takes hours and hours and hours to upload when I do a really long video. All right, laying this in about the center. Doesn't have to be perfect. You know what? Maybe I'll do that. I'll do a part 1 and a part 2 just because of length. And that way, if people don't want to hear the answers to the questions or see how the flower's made, then I'm going to watch it. All right. I'm going to, again, trim around about 3/4 of an inch all the way around so I don't have any excess that I don't need. That's close enough for me. All right. Here is the center spine of the chipboard. Did I do? Oh, I did just one of the 2. What? Why do I have extra pieces? Did I cut 3 of these? What did I do? Oh, I know. This is the one from the other side. All right. For the second piece, see what happens when you have 2 books going? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the exact same thing I did for the first piece. I'll do that there and I'll do that off camera because you don't need to see that. For the spine, you do need to see it, and which is why I'm doing it this way. Okay, I'm getting a mess over here. Spine, point. Okay, I want to come with my bone folder and score these 2 sides. See, when there's glue on your glue mat, you get glue on your cover. This isn't going to show. It's the inside of the spine, so it's not going to see, but I still don't want glue everywhere. All right. Glued and glued. I did not miter this. Okay, you'll notice I did not miter this. I'm going to fold it over and fold it over. But I am not gluing these pieces because these are going to be my flaps. These are going to be how I attach it to my front and back piece. Okay, I'm going to use this to attach it here and here. All right, so I am not gluing my 2 long flaps. I am gluing these. So I'm going to score that. And I'm going to score that. I should have done this on the score palette or on the cutting board, but it doesn't really matter. And see, you can see I'm getting glue on here from the glue mat, which is why when I get glue, I should do this. All right, learn from my mistakes. I do want to glue down the top and bottom edges. And I want those to be nice and tight. So I notice I did not cut out that corner. I want that corner on there because it's going to give me extra strength later on. All right, glue and fold. They are not mitered. Here you go. See, you can use a bone folder. You don't have to use your ice scraper. But I want these nice and tight. All right, and I'll do the same thing on this side. And again, fold it down, pushed nice and tight. All right, glue mat. Okay, flaps left open. Here is These are the inside pieces. So this is going to be inside, right? And it's going to fit like this. But I'm not putting them together on purpose now because it is notably easier to put the signature in this piece without the other flaps on it. It's easier to get it straight. It's easier to work with. If you're sewing on a machine, if you're sewing in signatures, my personal opinion is it's easier. Now, some people do put the whole thing together and then sew the signatures in. And if you want to do that, go for it. I'm just sharing my experience. It's much easier to work with. Once I've got the signatures sewn in, however I'm sewing them in, then I will attach this, which is the inside cover piece, and this, which is the unfinished, as yet unfinished, outside cover piece. But, and I'll show you tomorrow, or Tuesday actually, I am going to use a piece of canvas before I assemble the whole piece. And then that's another reason I don't put it together. I want to cover my stitches that are going to show here. Now here I sewed in, I did a different type of spine that I wasn't pleased with, but you can see where the thread, the heavier duty linen, waxed linen thread shows through. I'm going to have sewing machine stitches so it won't show like that. But you can have an open spine, like, well, no, you can't on this one because it wouldn't be very pretty. You could cover this and have an open spine and all your stitches show through. I like a covered closed spine, so that's what I'm going to do. But just know, if you were wanting your spine stitches to show, you would put a piece of paper here or a fabric here or lace here or whichever you wanted to do, and then you would sew your signatures in. I don't want mine to show, so I'm going to put my fabric, or maybe I'll even put a piece of lace. I'll do that. That will be one of my last steps. Second to last step. My very last step will be to adhere the top. And the reason that'll be my very last step is I want to be able to cover anything that I want to cover. So they'll fit together like this as my inside cover, right? And then my very last thing, after I've sewn my signature and after everything else is done, I will adhere this piece to my outside cover. Okay? So that's this video. That's enough. That's done. And I will come back with a part 2 and answer questions, show you how to make the paper flowers and some other random bits. All right. Thanks for watching and happy creating.